So, what are your name and pronouns?
I'm Keera Mockingbird. I go by she, her, and they, them.
All right. And how do you identify?
Trans femme.
All right. Can you tell me a bit about your VTuber model or persona?
I am a changeling abjurer, so a wizard who specializes in defense magic. I stream from a parallel universe to the modern world that exists in literal and metaphysical shadow using magic.
All right. Yeah, that's really cool. How did you ensure that your model represented you?
When I went to my artist, I came in with a drawing that someone I was dating at the time had made of me. And so I went, basically I went to the artist and I was like, I would like my VTuber model to be not disconnected from my body type. So I'd like to use this art of me as the body reference.
Okay, gotcha. So you actually used. Okay, that makes sense. That's really cool. And actually, out of curiosity, who was your artist again?
Hello, I'm Lemon.
Lemon. Lemon's
Yeah.
a fucking beautiful person, beautiful soul. Love them. Very talented
and
artist.
amazing artists. Like they
Yes.
are, and they're such a pleasure to work with as well.
Aw, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. God, I'm glad that you got in contact with Lemon, though. That's really cool. That's awesome.
I hung out with her and Ani on call and was watching her draw different body types. And I was like, oh, this person could definitely do what I'd like in like building a VTuber persona.
Yeah, no, seriously. There's actually a few artists that I know that are like Lemon. So like, I like to go to Lemon. I like to go to Iris, and I also like to go to Nomi and June as well. Junie, Sheepish June, or sorry, it used to be Sheepish June, it's now Fruity Junie. So absolutely adore them.
Yeah, I wanted to be like visibly plus size in my model because that's not a thing I wanted to shy away from in my VTubing. It wasn't. Some people use it as a way to deflect sort of like fat phobia and stuff, and I wanted to put myself in a position where I could be perceived as plus size and build up confidence that way. So it was important to me that the person I was commissioning was able to draw a plus size body in an appealing way.
Yeah, no, Lemon does a great job at that actually. Oh man, I like that she draws me really like kind of chunky whenever she draws me. I'm not sure if you saw the artwork she made for me, but she made this artwork with like fireflies around it, and I was like, I was so happy because there were a few artists that in particular that like focused on drawing me kind of chunky. And I really appreciated that. Like, I don't know, it was nice because they like took into account that my lower half is a bit thicker, and it kind of also, that the same thing is with myself IRL, right? Is my lower half is quite thick, although my upper half is quite skinny. I'm very thick on the lower half, and so it's nice to see an artist care to like put that into the details,
When you see an artist not only pay attention, but pay like loving attention to plus size curves in a way that you see other body types get that attention, it's really flattering and validating, and just helps relens your perspective on what is deserving of like care and attention.
Yes, exactly. God, it's like, I don't know. It's sorry to get so off topic, but it's just like, oh man, it's so nice because it's like you see so many skinny models, and there's nothing wrong with a skinny model, right?
Right.
But it is so nice to see like some love and like and care into like different body types, not just super skinny and not just chunky, but also like people who maybe like me who have like a much skinnier upper half but lower half is chunky, or vice versa, and different body proportions that maybe you wouldn't normally see in anime, and yet it gets some love in the VTubing space when you find just the right artist for it.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things where I appreciate I appreciate people who have like, you know, the more typically sought after sort of Vroid default body types. Like I am an appreciator of body types of all kind. I also wanted there to be more representation and decided that for myself, but also because I want to try to be the change I want to see in the world, that again, being perceptively plus size was important to me.
Yeah, and thankfully, actually, with Veered in particular, the default sizing is quite skinny, but thankfully, they've actually added bodysuits, and people have been using that to make their characters thicker as well, which is so nice. I did that for Lemon's model too. It was very fun. I love Vroid. Anyway, sorry. So, what drew you to VTubing, and do you find it rewarding?
Since I was, now that I think about it, this particular scenario probably explains a lot, but when I was very young, at some point, my parents were fans of Robin Williams, and we watched Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh my god, throwback.
Right in
oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, it was brand new at the time, and I was a young kid. So a lot of the themes of the movie went over my head, but I was just getting to the point where I was starting to think of things like, well, what I want to be when I grow up, and things like that. And the opening scene of Mrs. Doubtfire is a cartoon. It's like a cartoon of some parrot, some like anthropomorphized parrot, and he like I don't know, he does some cartoon shenanigans, and then he pulls out like a cigar and starts smoking it. And Robin Williams is voicing the character, and when he starts smoking the cigar, he starts like coughing because he doesn't like promoting smoking with like cartoons or whatever. But like that scene made me realize, oh my god, there's people behind the scenes who voice all of my favorite cartoon characters, and that's a job people do. So ever since I was little, I've wanted to be a voice actor because of that scene. And I think also it might have given me, because at the end of the film, the character of Mrs. Doubtfire isn't erased. It's actually like, no, this person that Robin Williams was portraying is a valid person, and someone that is appreciative, and he ends up through drag, through Mrs. Doubtfire, getting his own little like children's TV show. That's the ending, is as Mrs. Doubtfire. Sorry about that. He gets his own children TV show, like a Mr. Rogers sort of thing, but as Mrs. Doubtfire, and the family loved him as Mrs. Doubtfire. They loved her, and I think that was the first time I saw someone displaying non-traditional gender role or gender expression receive any sort of acceptance.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that was your first experience and something that like, meant something to you. So
that's a bit of a digression, but I've always wanted to be a voice actor. I've always wanted to be an entertainer to some extent. I love fantasy stories and writing and taking complex themes and finding ways to streamline them into removed from the modern world. And I have been so scared to be myself up until recently that this is my first time putting any of that out there into the public perception. And I wanted a way I could do that but remove my IRL self from it, so I could better feel able to manipulate things in a way that maybe people wouldn't expect. being a changeling, mimicry is a huge part of like changeling being a doppelganger, sort of a line thing. So I can practice different voices, and I can tell stories, and I can do that fantasy writing in a way that's like one cohesive package. So it was really appealing to me to be able to do that in a public perception, and if someone hates on me, I'm protected by a layer of anonymity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So it feels like a little more freeing to kind of be yourself because of that anonymity. It's like, I can just do whatever I want to and be whoever I want to, and nobody can say anything because they'll never know who I am.
I mean, they can say things and I can retort, and it doesn't matter if it escalates. Like, I can stand up for myself in a place where I feel safe that there won't be a physical altercation. And I can remove people who are disrespectful in the ways they disagree with me, which is more control than I would have if I were to be like an actor in flesh, and then I make a movie someone dislikes or a joke someone dislikes, and now it all comes down on the IRL person.
Yeah. Fuck them. Fuck the haters. Fuck them. Because, like, who cares what they think? And, I know it's like, we'll get into this later, of course, I'm sure. But, I'm sure a lot of people in the community definitely experience hate, but I'm sure it feels a lot better to just ignore it, Well, even for me personally, right? It's easier to just ignore it when, you have that model to protect you and to go, you know what? They make their judgments on me, but they actually have no idea what I'm like behind the scenes. They have no clue. All they see is some anime girl on screen. What do they know?
And honestly, they can make their... I feel Keera is very connected in terms of like everything about Keira's design is a reflection of me, just in a storytelling more sort of sense. So the design, the backgrounds, even just picking changeling are all things connected to me. So it doesn't feel like a criticism that isn't personal, but what it does feel like is I get to put what I consider my best self forward, and when people disagree with that, I can say like, okay, well, I don't need you in my life because there's people who appreciate this. So getting the mixture of the negative with the positive, and realizing that there's far more positive than negative, it actually helps me shift my perception of myself, because I've just been surrounded by critical people. So being perceived for who I am, even through a VTuber mask, has been beneficial, because I know I'm not in immediate danger. I can disagree and stand up for myself in ways that feel authentic.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you have such a positive outlook on it. So, and can you share some of the highs and lows of your journey being transgender in the VTubing space?
Despite being openly trans, I haven't gotten a lot of hate for that. I've gotten far more people who have picked on my weight.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. I remember a post like that. Yeah.
So being openly plus size, I guess, gives me a shield from transphobia, because fat phobia is just easier.
Yeah. It's easier to be fat phobic apparently on the internet. I mean, it's a mixed bag, right?
Also, I don't know how much, because I'm not the typical V-roid model, and because I'm generally pretty conservative in the way I dress or whatever, I don't know that I draw in necessarily the attentions of people who are looking to objectify a person, because I find a lot of transphobia happens when someone goes, oh my god, that person's hot, and then they join in and is like, wait a minute, I'm attracted to someone that is a trans person, I need to throw hate at them. And I know it's gonna happen to me, especially if I lean more into spicier or more playful or more flirty content. I know that that's going to happen, and that's like, it's not going to be fun when it happens, but I feel like with a lot of trans VTubers, allows them a way to be more expressive with sort of that flirty part of themselves. And that's good. And I love that for them. But because I've been so far behind in the streaming culture part, I've been mostly focusing on that. And so I feel like I haven't necessarily gotten as much transphobia as maybe other VTubers who started out the gate knowing a little bit more about streaming and deciding to get comfortable with their sexuality on stream.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Sorry, hold on. Let me get some water real quick. Oh, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah. Highs have been absolutely people commenting on how they like my design, people provided, like, people who draw art of Keera unprompted because they just are inspired to, has absolutely touched me in a way that I'm so grateful and so, like,
very
honored.
well deserved. Very, very well deserved.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful model and a very beautiful personality, of course. I'm not surprised that people want to draw you, genuinely. No, you're a sweetheart, seriously. I'm not just saying that to, like, flatter you, you know?
I would definitely consider, and VTubers so I admire, like you and Ani, being so, like, gracious and supportive, even like Cosmic, like, coming in and being like, oh no, you could be a big VTuber, like, whenever you're comfortable with it, I will, like, we could pivot to a direction that'll just get you numbers, and I know that's, like, cynical and you don't necessarily like that, but you have that potential. And just hearing her say something like that, like, highs, absolute highs to have so many cool and awesome and talented people see that same potential in me.
How could they not?
It's been amazing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I see why they see that, right? I know it's hard to, like, you know, go into and see yourself, like, you know, your own potential, right? But you're a sweet person. You have a lovely personality, and I think you have a lot to give the world. And I'm not surprised that others see the same thing in you. It's may not be not obvious to yourself, but it's obvious to everyone else. And I think you should definitely, you know, run with that and do what makes you happy, you know?
I appreciate that. It's been
I'm not
hard
just saying it, I actually mean it, you know?
It's been hard to see because I transitioned pretty, not the latest, but, you know, 30 years of thinking you're shameful is a lot to unpack. And so, like, my VTubing journey has been, like, hand in hand with my trans journey and learning to express myself and stuff. I would kill for Keera's, and it's not even like what Keera wears is not even like an extreme wardrobe to like buy. It's not nothing about that. It's like super crazy, but to find something like that fits on me IRL, I don't know. It would be something that would make me very, very excited and happy. But I was able to picture that sort of look on Keera before me because I was still waiting for my body to adjust. I didn't want to go clothes shopping and then have all my clothes not fit me because my body adjusted in a way that I didn't expect, you know? So I'm just at the point where I'm considering, okay, maybe I'll go clothes shopping now because it's been about 2 years on hormones. My body's mostly shifted. But for Keera, I was able to have that, and that was great. So it's been a high. The whole VTubing thing, the trans journey with Keera, it's been mostly highs.
That's good. I'm glad that the highs have, like, outweighed the lows, you know? For some people I know, some people end up giving up because, you know, maybe the lows get too much to be, you know, for them. But it's always heartwarming to see that somebody else has, like, you know, has experienced enough good in the space to go, you know what? Maybe some shitty stuff happens. Excuse my French. Maybe some shitty stuff happens, but at the end of the day, I'm experiencing mostly good. And that's what I like to see, honestly.
That's exactly how I feel right now.
I'm glad to hear it. And so, would you say that VTubing has helped you discover more about yourself?
Yeah, I maybe jumped the gun a little earlier, but
yes, okay. I can just put that part earlier in if you want, or you can expand on it.
I think in writing Keera and being intentional with her design, I was better able to discover the things I liked about myself as a trans woman. I very much have always been sort of moody, but I never really went into sort of the goth looks or culture or anything. I mean, and there's an argument to be made that if you ingest content that's gothic, that you're a goth person, whether or not you look it. There's an argument to be made about that, but
yeah. I mean, I would say that the look doesn't need to be gothic for you to be gothic, you know?
Right. But just the idea of sitting down and intentionally be like, well, how would I want myself to be perceived to the world? You know, like how would I dress it and look if there was no limits, no physical limits, no financial limits? How would I project myself to the world? Having the sort of like large eyeliner, black lipstick, black nails, those were intentional choices because those were appealing to me. They are, and that was not something I knew about myself until I started designing Keera.
I think it's things like that you don't really, that's the thing, is like, when I ask, that's kind of the reason why I asked the question, right? Is like, you never really know for sure that these things are going to mean so much to you until like you start exploring yourself and thinking, how can I really, like, you know, do things that'll make me happier? What kind of things can I do for myself, not only to appeal to others, but even just to appeal to yourself and have fun, you know? I don't know. Maybe I'm odd for that, but
no, that's how you find yourself, is you experiment and you try things. Like, you have to like try something that you would like, regardless of what the world around you thinks, and then decide for yourself if it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of aspects about Keera that were just things that I liked, in terms of like, she's very Dungeons and Dragons inspired.
I can tell. I love it.
Yeah, she's very Dungeons and Dragons inspired, but she's also not directly connected to any Dungeons and Dragons campaign. She's in sort of like a alternate, upside down metaverse to the real world. So I get to sort of play in this like limbo of fantasy and modern. That sort of stuff was all things I knew ahead of time, but the look, even the way I act, I've always been a soft person, but being able to be outwardly more affectionate is new to me. The whole VTuber play flirting thing, absolutely new, and was super scary to me. But it, like,
kind of grow to like it.
It's, yeah, well, it was a way I could explore things that I hadn't known about myself, and explore showing affections in a way I was afraid to before, in a way with very, not no consequences, but like with like controlled consequences.
Yeah, you decide, you know, how it goes.
Yeah, and there was like a freedom to that. Even just being objectified in any manner is not something I knew how I would feel about. And I commissioned Lemon specifically to draw sort of 4 poses of Keera in escalating spiciness to get an idea of what felt right to me and what I liked. And so I used Keera as a way to gauge my comfort level with being perceived in those ways.
Do you feel like if you had been just a flesh tuber, you know? God forbid a flesh tuber. If you had been a flesh tuber, do you feel you would have been able to explore yourself nearly as much?
No, because like, let's say I went up to an artist and I was like, hey, could you draw me in several different poses, like escalating in spiciness? That there's like not only, like, I'm sure you could find an artist who would do it eventually, but like,
it feels awkward.
Yeah, it's not it's not as well received. One, two, it's you can't be as intentional with the design, or with hiding behind anonymity.
Yeah. Anonymity. Yeah. It's a hard word, okay? It's a difficult word.
Right.
Why they gotta make it a hard word?
So it allowed me to explore those themes in a way that being just like a flesh tuber would not. Like, people still explore those things, whether it be buying outfits for themselves and dressing up. But again, I was limited. While I was trying to discover this, I was limited by the fact that my body was still going through really massive changes.
Yeah.
Being able to just hire an artist and be like, this is an avatar that represents me, and I want to see how I feel with just perceiving myself in these ways. It really gave me the ability to look at myself without the narratives that I had attached to myself before. And that's, I think, the big thing to me. My big takeaway with VTubing, with Keera, was that with Keera, I could reframe the narratives that I learned to believe about myself much easier. I can take all of those things that I experienced and I can apply them to Keera in a more fantasy context, or in more literal contexts, with like BPD being like actually the shadows kind of like attacking back. It's one of those things where, because I'm able to change my narratives around how I look, how I feel about myself, and I can edit it with Keera on the fly. If I'm like, I don't like the way this narrative fits with Keera, I'm gonna switch it. It's easier for me to switch it with like third person perspective than a first person perspective. And Keera gives me the ability to challenge my own narratives through a third person perspective, which allows me that comfort to be like, actually, no, it was never wrong for me to like this thing, or actually, I kind of like being a little flirty, or those are things that would have been way harder for me to figure out in first person. So it has absolutely helped me discover more about myself. It's given me the freedom to write the narratives down and change them in a complete way, in a way that holistic way.
Yeah. No, I got what you mean. Yeah. All right. Then that's also really good to hear. It seems like you have a very unique experience. And so, based on that, what would you say to somebody who was looking at VTubing as an option to being their truest self in content creation?
I would say try. I would say start writing down what you would think. Like, write down or draw, or whatever medium you have, just the idea of how you would want to present yourself. And even if you never get fully into VTubing, just the exercise of creating an online avatar, creating an avatar that represents you, will help you find out so much about yourself. Being able to express yourself in public view will teach you so much about yourself that it takes, I didn't learn in 30 odd years of not having that, because I was trying to be what everyone else was telling me to be. But when you can put down what you want on paper and then express that to the world, you'll find out so much about yourself. It's really worth a try.
Yeah. That was very well put. Thank you, Keera. Is there anything else that you want people to know about your experiences or your journey in the VTubing space?
I came at this with very little self-confidence. I still struggle believing that I have the same amount to offer as other people around me. And I can say with every day that I've done this, that those feelings are... I understand those feelings are more and more falsehoods. I think that there's a hesitance for people who maybe have been mistreated by their circles IRL, by the people they know, to go out and be their best self on the internet. And I think that once you're on the internet and you find a community that is, you know, supporting and accepting, it doesn't matter if you think the rest of the world will do it or whether or not, or the rest of the world will click with it. It doesn't matter if you don't think you have anything to offer. The act of wanting it is enough to be worthwhile. Just the fact that you would want at all to do it is enough of a reason. You don't need anything more.
Just do it. Do the thing. Do what makes you happy.
Just start small. Just start with the design, and then bring it up to someone that you trust, and then it starts small. But the act of wanting it is already a miracle and worth exploring.
I think that's something that a lot of people really need to take into account. You know, like, you know, just like it's like with any hobby, right? You say, okay, well, I want to do this hobby. Well, you know, as long as, you know, the base cost of it, if there is any base cost, is reasonable to you, then just freaking do it. You know, just do what you want. Do what makes you happy. Life is too short to, you know, care all this much about, like, you know, what other people think or what could possibly, like, go wrong. Like, you know, the negatives, you know, can't even come close to being outweighed, you know, can't even close to outweigh the positives that can come out of it, you know?
Right. Being open to the idea could be bad and it could be good was the first thing that I did to try and just, like, convince myself it was worth a try. And it's been so liberating for me. And I think there's a saying about something I can't remember who said it, but it was something along the lines of people are their truest selves when they're behind a mask or something like that. And I think that's absolutely applicable to VTuber spaces. I think that people can be their truest self behind an avatar of some kind, behind a metaphorical mask. And VTubing is also very accessible in the sense you don't need to be super financially well off, as long as you're willing to. I mean, not comparing yourself to others is important, but if you're willing to start with, like, a PNG, if you're willing to look for the resources that are, like, released available for free, like the chat bubbles I'm using was released entirely for free, just with, like, you know, credit the person. There's a lot of resources out there if you look. It is probably the most accessible way I can think of to be able to be publicly an entertainer. And because of that, it's very even if you're in a position where you don't have, like, a lot of resources and stuff, it's absolutely an option for creative expression, which I'm very grateful for.
I think it's been that way for a lot of people. So I'm that's kind of what I kind of want to highlight with this video, right? Is that, you know, if you choose to go forward with this, you're not alone. And I want people to feel encouraged to, you know, be their truest self and pursue the thing that makes them happy. And if that's VTubing, then awesome, you know, we'll welcome with open arms, you know?
I'm definitely, even just starting off with just playing games and doing typical VTuber stuff, I'm already through other people seeing that there's more variety than I ever thought was possible between, like, ASMR streams, between, like, music production streams, between just art streams. and I've seen people do this, and I want to at some point. I want to just like maybe an hour of every stream, just read, and then clip the like last hour of all the streams, like clip those, and then like edit them together and create basically an audiobook. Like you can have Keera read you this book as a bedtime story whenever you want. Like that's a thing moving forward I want to do, and it's because of just the freedom of creativity I've seen from all over the VTuber space that makes me think, oh, it doesn't have to be a specific thing. It can be anything I want it to be.